He works at Seabrook. He has been the principal of Seabrook Elementary School for a while now. He resigned.
So now I have to sit as it like places.
He rejected his proposal to start a new school. They turned down the school board, turned down the one point funds for the grant scholarship to support students' mental health.
I was just over there. Dropping down.
He's going from a public school
Well, it's not up to
campus elementary school.
How many students are there?
Like the kids.
Does she want to address it?
5 grades, 27 children.
I feel like there might be, why is there not that many children?
Newcastle, they go to Portsmouth after 5th grade, but they have their own elementary school. So they have a K1, a 2, 3, and a 4, 5.
Sorry, I'm just trying to say if we have it right.
Yes, I
But
think.
you're on the path to doing it
My
right.
son squeezing the eye to do. Yeah, so like heels.
Major, I want to see that's why.
The bills on the desk, I read one for Bank of America, but I don't think it's on the. It doesn't even need to look at it yet, but it came in late. He resigned effective early in the morning. I did them this morning, I read them to the end, so
So go to the super student.
days ago, there was no lines, but last 2 days. Yeah, I think no, it's right now. I don't know, the results, it was phone lines and everything, so I had Brandon come down to help us with the lights. I got that bill today, didn't he? He was out for hours and hours and hours. Yeah, I was still looking at stuff, so. They didn't do anything, but, so, we had to, all the lines that were connected on the other side of the building had to be disconnected and reconnected at this end. This is not Brandon, is it for hours and hooked up with the fax line, which I tried to test it, but it didn't work out either, so I need to figure it out. Yeah, I was assured nothing. No, so when we went to plug the main phone in, absolutely nothing. He's like, okay, so we have to disconnect here, reconnect here, do this here. So he came and like did whatever he needed to do in the server closet. It wasn't just unplug from that side and plug it on that side. Yeah, no, I believe you. I'm just upset that Comcast didn't.
Yeah, I just sent it a second time.
Yes, like this picture, but we can never get $700 back from him.
No. Yeah, no. Obviously, all the stuff they've done downstairs probably will just keep on going because that's all one new stuff. But the moving of everything to the other side of the building.
They didn't know we were even moving.
No,
That wasn't even, I never mentioned that. I
So
never
that's
thought to
Longchamp,
mention
so basically Longchamp's wired in all the lines for everything and
Right.
and then he was like, you're gonna put Comcast breaks, and I was like, is it Comcast, is it? So Brandon was out, and Brandon was like, right, you need to do this, we spent most of our day.
Okay.
At least I know if I can't get back to work, Brandon can come back out, because he was supposed to. And I tested it today, and it doesn't fail, so it's either something I've not plugged in, or that just seems good.
All right. Call the meeting to order. It is Monday, May 13th at 6 o'clock in the town of Lee. We're going to start with public comment. If you have public comment, please come to the podium, state your name and address. Limit your comments to 3 minutes and address the board. Any takers?
Paul Gazowski, 46 Lamprey Lane. There are plenty of things to talk about, but I'll choose two. The community power is on the agenda tonight, and in reviewing their materials, I was trying to rewind on where we are with that. It appears that this is a update in the briefing, and I didn't see that any decision is being requested.
would you like to address that?
Sure. It is a briefing of sorts. What exactly is going on is we started this process with Standard Power. It was a community power project with Standard Power. Standard Power has very recently, the end of last week, contacted me that they are expecting to maybe have rates in the fall. In the meanwhile, I have been approached by Community Power, who had worked with the neighboring towns around us, most of whom are up and going with Community Power now. Because of the nature of the process, it appears that you are not restricted to who you started the process with necessarily. So I have brought Community Power to the board to give them a presentation on what they've done in the surrounding towns.
Okay, so this is simply a presentation. Okay, thank you. The second thing is that on some future agenda, could we entertain putting the town municipal office building back on the agenda so we can get updated? And so it's almost June 1st. If we are going to move on anything.
We're not allowed to do anything for a year after a no vote. So we can, I think we can discuss it, but we can't really do any, we can't spend any money for a year. So, no.
And that would include work from DOT to review the prospective intersection?
I could certainly ask DOT to review plans, as long as it doesn't cost us any engineering or design work money.
Well, I guess the request is to put it on the agenda so that it can be discussed and people like me who didn't know that can be informed. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other takers for public comment? Okay, then let's move on to our appointments. We have, Ben Badowski and John Nazarbayev.
Yeah, it's me.
Thank you. Please come up to the podium for the Lee USA Speedway. Thank you.
Good evening, guys. So we just wanted to come propose a car show, basically, on August 24th with a rain date of September 14th. It'll be pretty much the exact same as the car shows we've had before, just with a different group. The only thing that we're asking to do is a 30-minute burnout contest to raise money to go towards Trot for Tots, the charitable organization.
Okay. Questions?
How noisy is the burnout contest?
It's one car at a time. You really hear the tires more than you'll hear the car.
The other question I had is, I noticed you put up those barriers. Can you speak to a little bit about that? Those are the
Yeah, we were well ahead of schedule on those. We were trying to get them done, as we talked about a couple months ago, towards the end of the season into next. We decided to just get it hammered out, and luckily we got it done just in time. So hopefully getting the noise pushed back into the raceway, you shouldn't hear it. It should, hopefully, I mean, I'm not a sound technician or anything by that, but it should cut it down to hopefully about half.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any public comment about the Speedway?
Can I just ask a question?
Sure, do you mind?
No,
Showing the podium?
Just what time?
You have to come to the podium, state your name and address. Thank you.
Nicole Montanez, 40 Northside Road. What time is the burnout?
So we haven't set a scheduled time for the burnout contest specifically. I can tell you probably between the windows of 12 and 4. I hate to be like the cable guy right now, but probably closer to around the 2 o'clock range would be right in that area.
That's what my question was.
Okay, any other comments from the audience about the pursuit? Chief, no issues with that?
Is it open to the general public?
Yeah, absolutely.
And the other thing is the previous owners allowed Lee residents, if they sign up, to get in for free. You guys still do that?
Yeah, we actually, so the old owners, the way that it was written was the town residents got in for free on a regular show, and anything over the $15 mark was $5 off with us. Taking the schedule back, in putting in bigger events. We didn't want it to affect anybody, so I put it out there. Anybody can go fill it out, get it town sealed, and you get in for free at every event, so.
And what's the process? Do they get the
You,
form?
yeah, there's the application on, it should be on the town website.
Okay.
You print it out, fill it out, and you just bring it to the town office and get the town seal on it. And you can either mail it to us or bring it right to the racetrack.
Thank you.
Okay, I move to allow the USA Speedway to hold a one-day auto show with a 30-minute burnout on Saturday, August 24th, with a rain date of September 14th.
Second?
Discussion? All right, all in favor? Aye. Thank you, and thank you for the barriers.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Combined.
All right, Danny and Deb?
Just as an aside, Deb, I wasn't sure exactly what you had for handouts. I know that what we printed in the agenda, the electronic link, was not the complete file you had sent, so I made hard copies for the board of the 2 sheets that I had.
And this isn't the whole thing, this is what I did. It goes, I know, but it doesn't go through.
Okay. If you're comfortable with that, then the board should have that electronically.
Is the contract that I call? Yes, I think it is on what I've called.
I'm always posted electronically with the agenda.
Oh, okay.
No, this is the same, it's just that these ones are down to the bottom.
Let's just try and make it so.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Portrait. Oh, yes.
That's the problem I was having. I couldn't make it print.
Excel. You make massive spreadsheets and then you gotta be able to hand them out. Okay, so 2 weeks ago, I was asked to, first of all, Deborah Shanda, 18 Hale Farm Road, trustee of the library and treasurer. I was asked to identify from the financial planning tool which items had been completed and which were pending. So what I did is I combined the two, the library capital reserve fund as A, which is column D, and I identified Lee Library Capital Community Fund. I'm just, I never get it right. And I identified that as B, so I could combine the funds. And doing that, then I said, and C is I added that column as well, and that's saying whether it's complete or not complete. And so most of them are yes. And then we have basement refurbish, which is the warrant article that just was passed. And so that's really going to get started probably in the next month or so. I understand the money's not available till July 1. We're fully aware of that. And then the exterior improvements, that is a no. And that would be, that's in the future. We don't actually have it planned. And the interior of the remodel of the schoolhouse is in process today, of the non-schoolhouse. So schoolhouse is done, so it's the rest of the building. Now the interior portion is being done, so which is why I said it was in process. And these are the costs that, column F are the costs that were associated with that, which the bottom is our own costs, and basically the project off to the right, you'll see MEC, which is Milestone Construction. They're phase 1, and we selected alternate number 3 and 4, which came to a total of $612,000. And then they go right down the exterior scraping, which was a change order. The electrical, we elected for exterior lighting, which wasn't in the original contract, as well as some additional outside outlets. The hybrid lift package we brought forward because we did have some savings in the basically in the work that was estimated. And the first floor interior, the adult section or the non-schoolhouse, whichever way you want to look at it, is the 330, which is also a change order. And now the basement is is a change order as well at 197,879. And then at the bottom are more smaller items, which the central alarm, the S&P contract, that's our architect. We had a remaining balance coming into fiscal '24, so I carried that forward. And then we also signed a contract with him recently, not to exceed $7,500, so that he could continue forward. His firm could continue forward with any of our questions, but most importantly, the basement, which they have done. The Herbert contract, which was the exterior siding, and then Hackwork is the rehooking up the fire alarm that they have in the building. So our total, so I subtotaled the two of them, and hopefully that's obvious, but the total is $1,191,176. So when and on the left side is the funds that we have available. So when I do the subtraction, we are left with $2,500 basically.
What is phase 2 of the exterior improvements that you guys are waiting to hold off?
That's the siding for the remainder of the building.
Okay, so the siding that you guys just did was only on which portion of the building?
School, so also.
Just the schoolhouse?
Just the
Okay.
schoolhouse, okay.
Thank you.
And that's all I have. Any questions, any thoughts?
You have a question?
All right. Mr. Tappan?
John Tappan, Chair and Bookkeeper for the Trustees of Trust Funds. When we look at making reimbursements to the town from the Library Capital Reserve Fund, there are two amounts we look at. Because obviously, we look at what's the balance in the fund. We won't write a check for more than the amount in the fund. But the other amount we look at is what have the voters approved? And we cannot write a check for any more than whichever of those is lower. In 2021, Article 7, March 2021, the voters approved $100,000 for renovation and addition to the library. Fiscal year 2022, $15,117.08 was spent from that $100,000. Before the end of that fiscal year, the Select Board encumbered that appropriation for one additional year. So, and then in fiscal year 2023, $45,410 was spent from that remainder. And that leaves $39,472.92. That amount was encumbered by a contract signed by the Library Trustees Chair, which was delivered to the Trustees of Trust Funds on June 26, 2023, so that's before the end of the fiscal year. Then in March 2023, Article 15, the voters approved $35,000 to come from the Library Capital Reserve Fund. So the amount that's available from the fund is $74,472.92. That's less than the full balance that's listed. So when you make that correction, instead of $79,722, the only amount that's available is $74,473. Then the total becomes $1,188,453. And if you accept the rest of this accounting, down at the bottom right, the amount that's labeled available to spend is minus $2,723. Any questions?
No, I don't.
This is something that the library trustees knew about. Deborah Shanda was informed of this in an email on the 30th of June, on July 4th, 2023, when I gave her the ending balances for 30 June 2023 and included of the Library Capital Reserve Fund balance of, at that time, $76,000 and change. the amount encumbered from the March 2021 appropriation is, and then I listed those amounts. And the amount from March 2023 appropriation is $35,000. So that is the maximum that the trustees can write a check for from that fund. That will leave money in the fund, but that's not available until the voters vote to spend it. I do have a personal comment about the expenditures. I think it's just something you should think about. The basement refurbish is listed as $197,000 and change. Based on the gross area of the building, that's the outside of the concrete foundation of the 1996 addition, that's $229 per square foot. Based on a net area basis, that refurbishment is $245 per square foot. Taking out the basement, the rest of the amounts that have been spent on that building is $993,000 and change. And the area of the building is gross area, 2,934 square feet, and that's $339 per square foot. And that building is still does not have an accessible entrance.
Can we have a clarification? They've mentioned that they're signing contracts, which it sounds like, from our legal opinion, they're not authorized to do. So is that going to be stopped, or?
I had actually spoken with Deborah Shanda about the change orders. The change orders most of these have been signed by the library trustees. The last one, the work had been done, and it did not make sense to not have them sign the paperwork. But that has been discussed on a going forward basis. But up until now, those change orders have been signed by the library trustees.
So it's your understanding that they understand going forward they're not supposed to do that?
My understanding, and I've talked with Deborah, and I have not talked with Mrs. Gusowski to the degree I have with Mrs. Shanda, but yes, we have indeed discussed that. And I have further discussion. I've talked with some folks in Barrington who use the same legal representation we do. And I think a lot of what needs to be worked out can be worked out in a memo of understanding with the library trustees, and the library trustees are in the process, so I believe, of bringing you back Representative MOU.
I just don't want us to get in trouble for legal purposes.
I guess my only question is, so these change orders to get the extra work, because you have extra money, why was the entrance and the roof and other things that need to be done to the building to keep it nice not chosen?
The roof was not chosen because it was listed, and the best of our knowledge, it's on, Steve Bullock brought it up, I think it's been 4 to 6 weeks ago now, something like that, that it really is in disrepair. But it was our understanding that, let me just get this right.
No, we were planning it for later, no, I understand.
Planning it later, yeah, I don't have, it's probably 2028. 2028,
So
yeah.
these choices, the hybrid lift and like first floor interior adult in the basement, all those change orders were decided before we figured out that the roof was.
Correct, absolutely.
What about the accessible entrance?
The accessible entrance is the next, so we talked about that the last time, that the logical next step would be a vestibule with the improved ramp for ADA compliance.
I was just curious why you chose other, like why that was put off further instead of doing it sooner.
Choices, money.
Okay.
I mean, truly that. I mean, there is a ramp. I understand that it has it doesn't meet the strict guidelines.
Okay.
But it's not that there isn't a ramp, and that was part of the hybrid lift, is that making it accessible within the building, because it wasn't accessible. So they are, now individuals can actually access, well, they will be able to, it's not done yet, they will be able to access the basement.
Okay.
And everything that we've done since then, the bathroom now has a ADA compliant sink, has a toddler's one, the craft area has an ADA compliant sink. So, you know, everything, all the lights are dimmable for those children who, you know, have extrasensory as a problem. All of that has been worked into the project.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chapin?
Two things. It's not just the ramp, neither the ramp nor the stairs meet ADA, and they are actually nowhere close to meeting ADA. The cross slope is about 4 times what's allowed on the ramp. The stairs, the difference from step to step is way beyond, much greater than what's allowed. Then a comment as the chair and bookkeeper for the trustees of trust funds. For the Lee Library Building Capital Reserve Fund, you, the select board, are the agent to expend. The trustees of trust funds, we cannot reimburse the town unless expenditures are properly authorized. That means that from that fund, the select board has to have voted to have spent that money. It doesn't matter whether the library trustees on their own authorize something or anybody else. You are the agents to expend, and that is what the legislative body has voted for.
Any other comments, questions?
No.
We haven't gotten to the, can they use the old town hall? So your comments about that now?
Well, it would be, can I comment on basement in regards to Sherry Griffith, Riverside Farm Drive. Thank you, John, for those numbers, which always is very helpful to my brain. So my question, I guess, would be, the basement, as I've spent a tremendous amount of time in there over the years, is small. And I would think the amount of money for the accessibility is simply not worth it when we come down to the fact that we have a usable building that's currently being used. And so I just wanted to mention that. That's my opinion, the opinion of me, that we would perhaps not bother with the basement. And so I think that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Any other comments you'd like to share?
What's that?
If there's any other comments anybody wants to share. Thank you.
Said share, that's just.
Share, no, not Sherry, share. Anybody would like to share?
Thank you. Back.
Okay. Do we have anything to vote on there? Am I missing something? It was just an update.
No, I think that was an update. And Mr. Bullock is not with us this evening.
Okay.
And I talked with him today, and his position was that he feels the library roof should be replaced. He presented that to the board at the last meeting, and that's still his advisement.
Okay. All right, comments about the roof? I agree, it needs to be done, so I think we should need to do it. I guess the question is, how are we paying for it?
I think it should come out of the library fund, not out of the town buildings. That's what it's for. That's what the financial planning tool is scheduled for. We plan for 2028, but if it needs to be done now, it needs to be done now.
Comments?
I agree.
Great. Other comments from the audience?
Oh, yeah, I have a comment. So what you're basically saying is that what we just presented, you're going to not agree with? I mean, you're going to basically rescind this? We don't have the money to do it. I mean, another warrant article in March could be passed for a roof. But that's your choice. I mean, if there's a problem with the roof, during this period. I don't know, I mean, I'm not a maintenance person. Yeah, I mean, that was his best advice to the town. And I just, I mean, you can see the dollars spent. I would hate to see anything just destroyed, water coming in or whatever, given what we've done.
Yeah,
And it is not our money, it is all of our money.
right.
So I just think we do not have, I mean, we've committed to what I put on this piece of paper, and we have to, I mean, can we rescind on a contract? I don't know. I mean, I would have to have that conversation with Milestone, but it certainly isn't something that we want to do, nor will we be in a position where everything is then complete, we can call it done.
It would probably be, based on the good graces of Milestone, because those were AIA formal construction contracts that were used. So.
Okay. Mr. Tappan?
John Tappan again, 187 Stepping Stones Road. It was just pointed out to you that in fact they do not have the money for the proposed basement cost anyway. So that amount has to be changed. Unless someone is donating the rest, they don't have it. And the $100,000 that's listed as available from savings, have you seen any actual numbers that show that that is exactly 100,000? It looks to me like the proposed work for the basement at that cost has to be changed anyway. The cost of the roof is 10% of the cost of the basement. The cost of the basement on a square foot basis is really, really high.
Well, either way, I don't see any money coming from the foundation. So I would suggest that you guys start looking at getting money from the foundation to cover some of these expenses.
The foundation is listed. Sorry.
I must have missed it then.
Back
25
here.
and 26.
Excuse me.
Yeah, exactly.
So the foundation only has $100,000?
It's like 100, I don't know exactly, because they just bought some bookcases, probably about 115.
So there you go. There's your money. This is only $19,580.
Yeah, I mean, I don't run the foundation. I am not, I'm not in a position to even make a comment on that.
That's fine.
I've never been part of that fund, but yes, there is approximately that amount of money in the fund.
So I suggest we move this particular article, or not article, motion, and the source of funds being the library. Mr. Tappan can give us the official name of it, but is it in
The
the
library building capital reserve fund, I believe is what you're.
Correct, it is, the official name is the Lee Library Building Capital Reserve Fund, and its purpose is capital expenditures for the town's library building. And that's why you have the letter from the trustees of trust funds saying that, yes, that fund can pay for re-roofing.
Any other comments? Okay, I move to grant the Public Works Director permission to enter into an agreement with Innovative Roofing New Hampshire to replace the library roof for an amount not to exceed $19,580. Said funds to come from the Lee Library Capital Reserve Fund.
Nope.
Lee Library Building Capital Reserve Fund.
I wrote down correctly, apologies, from the Lee Library Building Capital Reserve Fund.
Second.
Comment? Discussion? in favor?
Aye.
All right, Ms. Daniels, I'm gonna call you Director Daniels, and I was like, that's
weird.
That's weird.
That's weird, yeah.
All right.
Caitlin Gale, Director of the Library. So I'm here to ask the board again, for the third time, if we can continue to use the Old Town Hall as our programming space. As you all know, we're still under construction, we're still under renovation, and half of the top floor of the library, the main floor, is inaccessible at the moment. Yes, our children's room is ready, it's beautiful, but the noise level in there doesn't accommodate for programming right now. There's a lot going on. So aside from that, the library would like to use a program space. The Historical Society and other people in town also have approached me, asking me if they can use a space. Obviously, that's not up to me, but it just showed me that it is a community space. The library have been holding adult and children's programs in there, as you know, for well over a year. It started with just children's programs, but obviously we've grown over the past year. We've had multiple organisations in there doing library events, and it's become a real community space. So what I'm asking of the board is if we could continue to use that space not only for library programming, but also if we can manage the space for the board. I know the Historical Society came and had a chat with me about also using the space to display some of their exhibits that they want the community to enjoy also. So I guess what I'm asking is for us to come to an agreement on how the space can be used as a multi-generational community space that everybody can enjoy. And obviously I would offer my services in managing the calendar of the space. I think somebody has to be in charge of that, making sure it's maintained and that everything going on in there is nothing overlaps or coincides. But especially, I mean, our children's programs in there are huge, and I feel we'd be letting a lot of parents down if we can continue the after-school programming in there. And I know we've got this beautiful new space, but at the moment we're still not ready to use it.
Okay, thank you. Comment, yes?
Yeah, with all due respect, I know there's been some board discussion about management of the town hall space, and I think you're on a slippery slope and would make it harder to retain control of that building in the future if you turn the management of it over to the library. Not that I don't think the library would do a fine job of managing it, but the board has expressed interest in keeping some control of that building and possible other use for it beyond library programming space in the future. And I just think you're going to make that more difficult.
I just meant manage not manage the building, but make sure nothing was double booked in the space, more than manage the whole space itself.
Can we define next year? I would like that defined as June 30th, 2025.
Sure.
I don't have any problem with you using the space. I agree with Andy that depending on who it is and what they're asking for, we need to have oversight over that. So I don't have any problem with you guys using it for another year, but I don't want to relinquish that control.
If other organizers, so at the moment, obviously we've already had permission to use it for library programming. If other organizations such as the Historical Society, or there was a particular group in Lee that wanted to meet in there, should that be something that we bring to the board every time and just do it in advance, have a little bit of notice from people, like how?
So I think when we had was it Friends of the Library?
Yes.
The bingo.
Yeah.
I think we talked about at that meeting, I'm sorry, was that you guys can give your calendar to Denise, she'll block off the town hall space. Any other group that wants to use it can reserve it through Denise, just like they do any other room
Okay.
in the town hall. So I would just draft them to Denise.
Okay, and then what about kind of other groups, Keys getting in? The Historical Society also want to display exhibits. I mean, how can we do that?
Denise she'll manage it the way she does the rest of the building. So you guys can give her your calendar, you have right of first refusal in the space, but then I think Denise can manage the.
So if they have a request, they need to come to us.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we'll bring that back to the board if we get a request for exhibits, or I think what's worked very well in the past has organizations that have been jointly sponsored by the library. You've done some joint things, I believe, with the Historical Society, and that, if it's a library activity that's a joint presentation, I think that is small endeavor and probably doesn't need a lot of select board oversight. But if there are other groups coming in, other groups that want to meet there regularly, if you want to put up exhibits, that type of thing, that clearly needs some select board oversight.
And also, you need to be involved as well, because you've got all your stuff around there. If
Well-
somebody comes in and says, hey, we want to see 50 people, that's going to cause you a problem.
That's also my question to you. I mean, how can we, I mean, we've already started clearing out a ton of stuff. We're trying to get everything back into our building as best we can. We're still obviously in the renovation. We've got stuff in storage over there. We've got more and more books and things to store for the next few months at least. And Judy is working very hard to clear down that space as best we can. Is that acceptable to you that we just keep working on that and we try and get the spaces
Yeah, but even
usable by everybody as we can?
Yeah, but even when you didn't have all that stuff in there, you still had all
We
that.
absolutely did, yeah.
So if somebody wants to use it for like 50 people, that's going to cause you a problem. That's what I'm talking about. So maybe if Denise can let you know, hey, somebody wants to use the conference room table.
Yeah.
That's not going to cause you any.
No, not at all, not
But
at
if
all.
somebody wants to see 50 people in and do a presentation, that's going to cause you a problem.
Right.
So if Denise, if you can let her know if there's something like that, but if they want to use a conference room, you know, a conference table just for a meeting or something, that's not going to bother them. But if there's a large group that wants to use that space, that's going to be a problem, in my opinion.
So just to be clear, just so I know where we stand. If people come to me, come to the library, come to us and ask to use a space, and it isn't a library program, Denise's number, talk to this lady.
Yes.
Okay, so if I send Denise our current calendar, everything that we have going on, anybody that wants to come in between time that isn't a program with us just goes right through the town. Perfect. Thank you. May I also have permission to continue storing in the 2 rooms that we're currently storing in for until June 25?
As long as you don't go upstairs.
We are not upstairs, no. On a more positive note, I would just like to inform the board that Miss Judy Belanger won Youth Services Librarian of the Year this year.
From what organization?
The New Hampshire,
Children's Library.
thank you. New Hampshire Children's Library Association.
Oh, that's fantastic. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Let's get it over there. Hold on, just fixing it. Okay, so we move to allow the Lee Public Library to use the Old Town Hall as a community space for local groups and residents, and to continue to use the 2 rooms they are currently using as storage for storage through 6/30/2025.
No.
No.
Community space for local groups, no. And residents, no. It's their space to use.
Okay. Who are they?
Continue to use for library programming. This
Yes.
is, then everybody else will go through Denise.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, all right.
Because that sounds like local groups
I
can
just assumed
use,
we were saying that
and that's
they were
not what we're saying.
All right, we move to allow the Lee Public Library to use the Old Town Hall for their programming, and the 2 rooms that they are currently using for storage to continue to use this for storage through 6/30/2025.
Yes.
Okay.
Second.
Discussion. There's a lot of people in the audience that have any comments they wanted to share.
Nicole Montanez, Board of Observer. I just want to say thank you, because I thought I was going to come up here fighting. I greatly appreciate you guys taking into consideration of the programs that Ms. Judy and the library puts on. My kids go to a lot of them, and they're very enriching. The main thing I want to point out, even in 2025, it will be an issue that, no, he's not even here, the assistant deputy chief basically said that children's area can only hold about 19 people safely. So if in 2025 you decide to change your mind, those programs won't fit in there.
Is that what the purpose of the basement was? Did I misunderstand? Where were the programs before they were in the town hall? Because they used to just
They were
be
in the
library.
basement, and it wasn't very.
But the basement's being renovated, so won't they go back to the basement?
And if they were in the corner of
So-
what was then the children's
So
room.
what is your guys' plan after 2020?
Oh, I just opened this can of worms. Thank you for helping us.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a question. Do you guys have a plan for after 2025?
We will.
Okay. All right. No comment? Okay. All right, welcome.
Hi. Gail Kinberg, I live at 12 Lee Hill Road. And I've been in town for 17 years, which doesn't mean that I'm an old timer, but I'm not a newcomer either, and served 14 years as pastor of the church. I'm retired now. So I've been involved in community activities, building usage, etc., for a long time. And 3 of my grandchildren have been very active in these programs. I'm very familiar with the basement. You should go down there and see it.
I have been in it. I just assumed since they were renovating it, that meant they were going to
Because
use it.
we used to do that for the preschool program. You had to sit on the cement floor with the cement blocks at your back.
Okay.
And it smelled.
Okay, but they're spending almost $200,000 to renovate it.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
I can speak to that in a minute.
So, I do want to say, because sometimes I have not always in the past agreed with some of the decisions that you all have made, but I want to say from the bottom of my heart that I truly applaud you letting the community, the old town hall be using it as community space. I think it's a wonderful decision. Our children really, really benefit. And if you're not aware of the number of youth and families who are going through that space, I believe they project for this year will be in excess of 10,000. That's a lot of people.
A year.
10,000
A year.
people?
A year.
Okay.
That's what you said.
10,000 visits.
Okay,
Visits.
sorry.
That's a lot of activity,
Yeah.
which impacts this town and this community in really wonderful and powerful ways, especially for kids who are just coming up, who were born during COVID, and so they were completely isolated for for a couple of years, and they're just starting to come back in. These programs are essential. I did go to the library trustees meeting last week and asked the question, what was the plan for that space, which is already completed. And I was stunned to find out that it only will accommodate 19 kids. If another plan is not formulated, the decision that was made last year to make the children's librarian a full-time position will be moved. You will gut that program because you cannot run it in a space that only will accommodate 19 people.
Okay. Thank you.
My other comment is, this will sound crummy, I don't mean it to be, maybe I do. The Historical Society now has 2 buildings. I don't understand why they need to use the old town hall as well. And if they put up a display that is, which is old items, antique items, how will the children use that space?
They haven't actually come to us to ask, so
I'm
we don't know much about it.
I'm just saying, is it gonna be a permanent display? Will it interrupt the children's programming? Kids are not particularly good about boundaries and not touching things. If it's there, they're gonna touch it.
I have one of those curly beauties, so I understand.
So I'm not trying to be a nuisance, but I think that some of these things need to be said, that, if you're going to use this space for the benefit of the community, it needs to be as flexible as possible. And the kids make a mess. They just do. They're kids. But that's the beauty of the program. And it's the beauty of the space that you have. So I'm personally very, very grateful because it benefits so many people, adults and kids. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
May I?
Please come on up.
Thank
Can you name your name and your address?
Sure. My name's Eileen Harwood, and I'm at 5 Lee Hill Road. I have 3 kiddos. Unlike Mrs. Kindberg, I am more of a newcomer. I only had a small, brief run-in with the basement, and just the word sounds like no natural light, a little bit musty, but at least there's space for the kids. But when we transitioned to that the Old Town Hall, I was very, very grateful. I have 3 kids, all 3 of them use it, and we are very grateful. I mean, we're there multiple times a week. We pay high taxes, and I say, take my money, take my money. I don't care because I use the resources. We love it here. So basically, I'm speaking in favor of continuing to use that space. Thank you for that. And also And out of curiosity to see what will become of the deadline as it approaches, I'm sure we'll be talking about it before that deadline. So I just want to say it's almost irreplaceable. We brought up the number 19. It sounds like, I don't know if that was 19 kids or 19 total. So everyone, when they're little, they're going to have a parent with them. I mean, that's half that. It really is more for like coming and going or small meetups from a play date or something. Not so much for what we do now with Miss Judy, which is very enriching, a #1 priority for families with young children. And frankly, the best investment we can make as a town. So thank you guys for past, present, and truly, hopefully, the future for that. Thank you guys.
Okay, I wrote it all down.
Okay.
Sherry Griffith, Riverside Farm Drive. Okay. As a person who has had a group go through the library, the Home Education Club, Cultures Club met there, did very well. Haley and Judy, Michelle, Wendy, everybody organized that very well for us. The space was left exactly the way it was. So, you know, we took pictures before we get there. We utilize the space in a different way. So speaking to your groups of perhaps 50, that's the group coming in's responsibility, in my opinion, to say, look at these lovely little tables that Judy has put together herself. Put that stuff back where it belongs. I mean, it's not that hard.
You mean that the library should just leave all their stuff out and then the
Yep,
group?
I 100% believe that. 100% believe that, yes. I mean, as being the Cub Scout, Boy Scout, and 4-H leader, if I want, and we use the church constantly. It's not the church's responsibility to be our recreation center in this town. And so, in my opinion, having used it as the Home Education Club, and we had to move everything out of the way. We did presentations in there, and then we just put it all back, because we're using the space that is utilized most by the children's program. Let me tell you another thing. It is so loud when those kids are in there. It's almost ridiculous. And you know why? Because they're having fun. The elderly population in town does not want to hear that many children in their children's space. It would be horrible. I wouldn't want to do it. It would be terrible. And I have to speak to Gail's also. I think that, I love the Historical Society, love it. What Scott and Jan have done are great. However, you've got 2 buildings. We don't need that. We don't need more exhibits, in my opinion. I think that's all I have. Okay.
Thank you.
Paul Guzowski, 46 Lamprey Lane. I wouldn't want to be in your position right now, the money you make in that position. I recall that at one point in time, we had the semblance of a plan for a town center. Okay, and part of that dealt with the idea of doing things in phases, and the library renovation was perhaps phase 1. I'm the spouse of the chair of the trustees. I'm empathetic to the library trustees, and I like libraries. And I just want to comment that these trustees and this project has been pounded on endlessly. And they've navigated the gauntlet, or tried to navigate it as well as they possibly could. The point at hand is that if that's phase 1, phase 2 was to be the municipal office building. Phase 3, in my recollection, was to be the old town hall. And that old town hall, in my mind, and I think this has been said, was to become kind of our de facto community center for all generations. Okay? So, I think you have your eye on the ball, and in the right place when you are reminding us that there's a larger plan for that facility that would involve multi-generations. And I think you need to keep focus on that. So if we can't act on the municipal office building, and the library is trying to figure out how they're going to get their project done under stiff challenges, and it seems to me that maybe maybe we need to get back to the strategic plan for the town center and at least get some activity regarding that. We've gone through our share of committees, but maybe it's time to revisit that to keep the focus where it will be. You need to recall that back in 2014, the town voted on the opportunity to build a library community center on the Bricker property, and that faced stiff opposition. That would have cost us $1.3 million. We wouldn't have had to perhaps buy $20,000 worth of additional property for where we're planning to put the municipal office building. Now, we would have had a problem that essentially would have been solved. So it's time to keep the focus, and you're facing a lot of pressures from groups that have specific interests. But there is a larger interest and there's a larger need, and it is multi-generational. And if we don't keep that space, the Old Town Hall, as a multi-generational space and have a plan for eventually renovating it, then we're not going to have a space, period. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nicole Martinez, Board Nurse, whatever. I just wanted to comment that it is currently a multi-generational space. There are adult programs that are currently running there that are through the library. So it's not like just about the children. There are the crafting, the book club, some other stuff that happens when I'm at work. So I just wanted to make sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. I'll second that. We have the 10,000 people visits that come through the door is only children. It's up to 17,000 with adult programming in there. And we have everything from babies to 100-year-olds in that space. With regards to what we're doing with the renovated whole library when it's done, when the basement's done, it won't become a program space again. It wasn't big enough in the first place, and it would be the same amount of numbers in that basement space as it is upstairs, so it wouldn't work for that. We're trying to make a teen space within the library. We have no area for teens right now. Those of you that don't visit the library very much won't see how much our patrons are growing in age, in numbers. We have more and more people coming through the door looking to use computers, looking to use digital resources, looking for help with absolutely everything. Even somebody wanted me to help them with their brain scans the other day. People come in for many, many different reasons that you have no idea what we have to deal with in there. And we're just getting busier and busier, and we just don't have the space. So using that basement for our collection, our collection is growing, everything is growing within the library, and we're growing out of the space that we have. The reason for moving into the basement is not solely for that, but we need a teen space. We need more space. We just haven't got enough. And so without an addition, we need to make the most of the space that we've got, and to be able to make the most of that basement and the library as a whole, it has to be ADA compliant. Therefore, we have to put the lift in. With regards to Mr. Tappan's comment about the accessibility within the front of the building, we have multiple grants in the works right now. So I just received a $10,000 grant for an ADA compliant push-button automatic door. That will be going in. I'm waiting to hear back from T-Mobile for a $50,000 grant to do the walkway in the front. So it's not that we don't have those things in mind. We're always applying for grants. We're always trying to get more money by ourselves to try and do these things. But it's a process, and we are outgrowing the space right now with the amount of people that we have coming through the doors. So I hope that answers any questions.
So what are you hoping to do in the future then for these programs?
So I would be brutally honest, I would be back here this time next year saying, please let us use that space again. Because there are too many people in this town that use the space. And we can't fit them in, we physically can't fit them in the library. We just can't, unless we have an addition, unless we have a new building. I don't think people realize how many people utilize the library on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis. We have a lot of patrons and they're just growing. The more space we have, this is our community and we're just trying to provide the best we can for the things that are needed. So I would be right back here again asking for the same thing, for the continuation of a multi-generational space that we can all use. Brutal honesty, we will be using our children's room, we'll be using it for different programs. We designed the children's room with everything movable, so all of our stacks are movable to create more space. We did all of the ADA bathrooms and sinks that everybody's been talking about so that we could do programming in there, but it's still not enough. And all the money in the world, unless we have more space, our community is growing and people coming in the library is growing. So we're doing the best we can with the space that we have on all levels of the building.
May I make a suggestion?
Absolutely.
Melinda and Bill Gates Foundation. Melinda Gates is now stepping down as one of the trustees of the foundation. She's being granted out of that particular foundation $12.1 billion. This is for her projects which involve women and families. So there is going to be opportunities there. So I would suggest whoever you have doing your grants of review, check that out.
Absolutely, thank you.
Because that occurs, I believe, the end of June.
Okay.
So this is her new thing.
Okay.
She's on her own, so.
Get on it now, you say?
Get on it now. Well, check it out. Check it out
absolutely,
because
thank you.
families, I'm hearing lots of family stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that would fit with that particular program. Excuse me, that particular program. So that might be an opportunity.
Great, thank you. We'll check that out, Scott. Thank you for the...
Yeah, because that's a lot.
Absolutely, yeah. The more we can get, the more help, the better. So I hope that answers questions about the building itself.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from anybody? Did we actually vote?
You did.
We did, okay. Making sure. Great. All right.
We did?
I didn't think we did.
I didn't think we did either.
You voted before the comments.
Yes.
You voted.
How did I vote then?
You voted unanimously in favor.
Oh, okay, I don't remember voting.
I thought we just seconded my wording.
Yes,
And then we
I
had
thought so.
discussion.
Can we do it again, just to be sure?
Wait, all those in favor?
Aye.
There you go. We definitely motioned on it. All right, thank you. So we now have Andrew Hatch.
Well, good evening, everybody. I'm Andrew Hatch from the Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you this evening. I had the opportunity to meet both with Andy Robertson back in April, and followed that up with a meeting with the Lee Energy Commission on the 24th. And the invitation tonight was obviously just to answer questions and have a conversation around community power rather than a presentation. So what I did on Friday was just provide a couple of informational sheets just to sort of bring you up to speed with where things are at. I don't appreciate you have a lot of agenda items tonight, so I didn't want to prolong this unnecessarily, but I am here tonight to invite the Select Board of the Town of Lee to consider joining the Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire, and to have the opportunity perhaps to partner with us to launch your community power program that was approved by the voters last year. We are in a position to assist you. We plan to be having our next launch in October. We've just been conducting the public information sessions for our June launch, which includes the town of Barrington. And I don't know how much conversation the Select Board has had with the Community Power Coalition in its deliberations on community power, so I didn't want to be presumptive, but I just wanted to mention some of the differences between a broker model that you may have considered, and I know, having read your electric aggregation plan that's posted on the Public Utilities website, I've taken a look at that and just sort of seeing how it compares and how the differences are. So I'm more than happy to get into that, but I just wanted some direction from the board as to what you wanted to hear about tonight.
Maybe Andy can help us. What's the the difference between standard and community? What's the?
Well, I think that's what Andrew had just touched on right there, the broker model versus what they offer. And I think he could probably answer that better than I can.
Certainly. So, as I say, the Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire was formed in 2021 as a non-profit joint powers agency. So we have members now exceeding 55, I think we're 57 towns and cities, along with 2 counties that have joined together. So if you want to look at it as an aggregation, as a group that is growing fast, we're serving over 120,000 customers right now, and that will soon be increasing by another 30,000. So the first thing to bear in mind is that we're not an apples and oranges conversation, because a community power consultant such as Standard Power would be representing a third party who would be the provider of the power. You could consider the coalition to be the same as that provider. We do it all in-house. So you're not paying a surcharge to a third party to go procure the power. What we're also doing is offering an ongoing relationship with our members, and we track our rates to the 6-month rates of the utilities. So unlike a broker where you would be committing to a longer term contract and perhaps hoping that that all works out in everybody's favour, unfortunately you won't know whether that did or didn't until the end of the term. But I do understand that it is a compelling idea for having some certainty. So it is a conversation that I understand people are weighing up. The coalition is not restricted to providing just this 6 months and 6 months rate. We just chose that that is the best way to be apples and apples and to be compared. We are currently in our 3rd rate period, and we have met our obligation to undercut all of the prevailing utility rates for this 3rd year. We will be publishing our rates along with those of the utility by the end of June for the August through January 6-month period. Our rates are currently 8.1 cents a kilowatt hour. I know that in the town of Lee you have 2 utilities. One is Eversource and the other is the New Hampshire Electric Coal. We would be in a position to serve both of those utilities. And as I said before, we are set up to assist you to move through the whole process in a fairly expedited manner. Clearly, with Lee having moved ahead and gotten its approval through town meeting, its Public Utilities Commission approval of your plan, there are many steps that you have already taken. This would be a decision by the board, and I believe that you are empowered by your legislative body to act on their behalf and to launch community power in a manner that you see fit. And we would do everything we could to assist in an easy transition to the coalition model. There are some fundamental differences in the way that power is procured, and as I said, the terms are not what you'd be signing up for. It would be a contract to participate in the coalition's procurement process. There are 2 basic contracts that go hand in hand. One is called the Joint Powers Agency. That is what you sign to join the coalition. But all of the verbiage in that is just talking about how we structure ourselves, how we make sure that there's no cost shifting, to make sure there's no liability to the town of Lee, and all of those concepts. The cost sharing agreement and our policies have to also be adopted. The town could do both simultaneously. One document very much leads into the other. And our agreements have been passed muster now by 38 communities who have launched. Those agreements are uniform. They, by nature, are the same for everybody participating. It can only get changed by a vote of the whole body getting together. So if you're interested, I could make sure that your administrator has access to take a look at those, to consider what any concerns you may have legally. I do apologise. I know you were hoping to have an independent session discussing all of this. I couldn't make it for that, but I'd be very happy to come back and roll up our sleeves and get into the details on this. But again, I'm here to assure you that we could serve you, and we'd be very interested to do so.
Can I ask a question about from the customer's point of view, can you walk us through that? Because it was my understanding the previous agreement, everybody was in and they had to opt out.
Yes.
And they can come and go as they please.
Right.
Is that the same with your particular organization?
Fundamentally, and your plan identifies that as the cornerstone, that it would be an opt-out program for those customers who are currently enrolled as a default customer of the utility.
Mm-hmm.
It does get a little difficult to conceive, but this idea is that the Lee Community Power would replace the default position of Eversource and the New Hampshire Electric Co-op. The benefit and the reason for doing that is really because for 30 years we had deregulation, and the intention was that folks would just use the utility default as a backstop when they came to town and get signed up, and then they would go off and procure power through a third party. But because that requires somebody to act, to opt in, and there's a lot of market information that's dizzying and complicated to compare apples for apples, a vast majority, particularly of residential customers, have not availed themselves of that. So the coalition's advocacy is to promote an opt-out program, so to give everybody the chance, just without taking any action, to save money.
Okay, fair enough. And if somebody already has a third party?
They would not be automatically enrolled. We would be sending out information letters to everybody and explaining their status. People can opt in and out of the coalition at will with no penalty.
Yeah.
And as you're probably aware, we have 3 levels of renewable energy above and beyond the basic offering. And from a customer service experience, we try to make it as simple and as easy as possible. We have a professional contact centre that can be reached out to and have all their requirements answered by phone, email, or online.
So the experience you've had in the 38 communities, on average, is the customers saving money with your particular program versus what they have?
Yes, in fact, the commitment of the coalition is that you won't launch a program unless the prevailing rate is lower than that of the utilities. Okay. And in the 8 months that we were in operation in 2023, the 12 launch communities, just 12 of the current 38, saved their customers $9 million over the prevailing rates of the utility. The only thing I would also just touch upon, because we are a non-profit, but also a government instrumentality, we're subject to the right to know laws. All of our books are open for scrutiny. All of our boards and committees are all staffed by volunteers and members of the communities that are served. And we, instead of taking profits, recycle the what we call the headroom, what comes out of revenues from the receipts that hasn't been required to operate the coalition or pay for power procurement, is put into a pool that's called community reserves. And those community reserves are primarily designed to keep rates stable and to make sure that the coalition is a financially secure organisation for the long term.
Good. Thanks.
I think one of the reasons that I wanted to talk to Andrew was in talking to some of our neighboring towns. I have been not so impressed with the feedback and information I've received from the folks that we started with, and nobody around us had that shared experience with community power.
So in terms of if we wanted to do the next step, that was sharing those 2 documents you were talking about?
Yes, the joint powers agreement and the cost sharing agreements, yeah.
Okay.
As I shared with you in your packet, there's little steps that you can sort of check off, the ones that you've taken and the ones that need to be taken. There isn't anything unique here in terms of launching a community power program. Either model of broker or through the coalition would have to go through some of the mandatory steps that are set out by the Public Utilities Commission. But as I said, as a non-profit membership organisation, it's a little bit different of a concept, because once you are engaged with the coalition, your contracts will be evergreen and continue to automatically renew unless you chose to exit. Whereas with a broker, you'd be signing up for a set period, and and then you'd have to repeat at the end of that contract.
Questions? Questions from the audience? I guess I'd be interested in seeing the contracts then, making sure legal approves and.
Yeah, I can certainly take the next steps with Andrew and come back to the board.
Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you very much for your time this evening.
Oh, thank you. All right, miscellaneous, regular business.
Yeah, I have very little regular business for the board this evening. Just a couple of tidbits I'll pass along. Last week of May, Jim at the trucking company will be paving more of Buzzell Lane, basically going through the parking lot at Portland Glass, and it's probably going to take about 10 days, and they're going to block off Buzzell Lane as an entrance and exit for the town offices. So we'll be posting plenty of information about that, but that will probably cause some confusion.
So they're doing the part that's dirt between.
They're not saying how much they're doing.
Oh,
but
okay.
Yes, my hope is that they're going to do quite a bit.
The only time there is a part is when they get out their loader and scrape it down so that,
Somebody left their keys.
oh, well, they'll be back. They'll be back.
We got the red.
Other than that, I have very little regular business to discuss with the board. You got
Anything
questions?
from our friend at DOT about the bridges?
No, he has, I know he has spoken with the residents that had concerns, and I believe everybody at this point is in good standing with the project, and I know they're going to do some strategic sign placements so the Sandwall farm doesn't get bumped out of the sugaring season or the pumpkin season, was I think more their concern at their farm stand. Mr. and Mrs. Sawtell had discussions with them and reached a favorable place. They actually had offered to contract to move haying equipment around for Eric, and after going through the actual plans, Eric determined that he could work around what they're doing without that, so.
Anything from Madbury?
No, I've heard nothing from Madbury.
Could you jingle them?
I can certainly reach
Rattle
out to
their
them.
chain or cage or whatever euphemism you want to use? It had to be you, right? It had to be you. Have a good night, Terry.
I will.
Yeah. We have a consent agenda. We did have a comment from the audience about the consent agenda.
Ann Tappan, 187 Stepping Stones Road. First of all, thank you for this opportunity to comment. I had expected that this topic would be an full agenda item rather than a consent agenda. I want to be very clear that I am speaking as a resident. I am not speaking at all for the Conservation Commission. I am not a member, and also that this request has come in between Conservation Commission meetings. So there was one last month, and we haven't, the following one hasn't happened yet. I am not advocating for a approved or don't approve position, but I did have some questions and comments that I'd like to share with you, because maybe you have these answers, or maybe this is new information for you. According to the orienteering organization, the events typically attract between 20 and 50 participants, and the course for the various events may be on trail or off trail, and they could have either or both at any event. The Conservation Commission and Trails volunteers have been, as you know, have been working to reroute trails to keep people off steep slopes and out of the wet areas. Both of those are plentiful in the town forest. Does this event include off-trail orienteering? If they do go off-trail, what keeps participants out of these erosion-prone areas and sensitive habitats? Parking for the participants is directed to the Mastway School lot. Who allows that use? And also, it seems rather presumptuous that the organization has already advertised the event on their website before the select board has considered it in any manner. So, thank you for the opportunity to comment.
I can speak to some of those concerns. My understanding is that there would be potentially some off-trail exposure to the degree that's allowed or part of the process, I'm not sure. I was advised rather late that this event was happening and contacted the chairwoman of the Conservation Commission and sort of put the brakes on and said this needs to go to the board. I need a certificate of insurance. I need some inkling that the school has approved use of their parking lot, which I was immediately contacted by the orienteering organization. They sent me a certificate of insurance naming the town as an additional insured, told me who they had talked with at the school, and assured me they had had permission to use the parking lot. They did not give me a lot more information. I told both the Conservation Commission chairwoman and them that this depended on the board approving it, and particularly it needed board approval, and I needed the certificate of insurance because they are charging a small tuition fee. I think it's either $5 or $10 to participate. So I said, you know, this is essentially, even though you're a nonprofit organization, you're charging a fee to participate in the activity, and that puts us all at a much larger degree of exposure than if people were just wandering in for a volunteer-free event. I believe and it's scheduled for this weekend, so there was very little time to.
I would say they have to stay on the trail. They shouldn't be wandering off because it's a liability issue. If somebody gets injured or hurt, who's liable? It's us. And it's a paid event.
Yeah, I think because they're being paid for the tutelage and the participation, that they're pretty solidly on the hook, which is why I immediately was interested in seeing their insurance coverage. I also contacted the fire department, the police department, other people involved, and said that this was a potential event.
Did they have any concerns, or?
They did not. They were concerned that they hadn't been contacted earlier, but.
And our insurance company is okay with it too?
Our insurance company does not have a problem with it, as long as you're named as an additional insured, which you are.
I would just say that they need to stay on the trails that are already in existence. They shouldn't be going off trail.
I can certainly buy some of that.
Issue.
Do we have a policy for things like this, events happening in the town forest? And
I couldn't find any
Just
policy
appearing?
regarding the open spaces. There's a policy for use of the pavilion at the park. There's a policy for use of rooms for meetings, that type of thing. There was no specific policy that I could find for the town forest. And they no differently.
There is no policy, and I had in my notes, well, if the idea of a policy comes up, again, I'm speaking as an individual. I mean, obviously I've been connected with the commission for a long time, know various town properties. I would like to highlight an event that happened, that took place 2 or 3 years, and it was several years ago at Little River Park. It was a doggy Easter egg hunt. And that I would say was kind of a model for the way things should be done. The select board was notified well ahead of time. They came and explained the project. There was an opportunity for questions. And the select board suggested that they get with the Conservation Commission. So we met, the commission met with the organizer of that activity, and we suggested a rerouting of the trail that they were going to use, and they were very happy. It was actually much better than what they had laid out in the first place. I think it could be a benefit for the town and for any organizations if there's a form, and more than just what's your name, do you have insurance? And one of the questions could be what other organizations in the town need to be contacted. Sometimes it might be the Conservation Commission, not always, but try to get, and that they do it soon enough. I mean, they did it very short notice, and it is already scheduled for the weekend and it's posted. So anyway, I would advocate for some sort of form, but that's up to you guys.
To that end, Fire Chief, Police Chief Karen Rossi, and myself have been reviewing other communities' forms for events on open space and special events is what we're terming it, and we will shortly have a special events form that can pick up things like this that are not meeting rooms or buildings or that sort of thing. And we are also hoping to use it. There are some other events we're finding out about well in advance. Demerit Hill is planning a new event, just a weekend type thing that we saw a lot of value to having the form that we could use to pick up odd things that
They want to use?
No, they're using their property, but it's going to involve some public permissions and things. So we're hoping to kill 2 or 3 birds with one form.
I would love that. Yeah, I'm just surprised that a group can come in and charge money, and I don't know.
Well, as I said, I was notified
Yeah,
the
no,
week
I don't blame you.
before, and there was very little information until I got a hold of the people at the Orienteering Association.
Okay, well, question about this particular event?
No. I will contact them and tell them to stay on the trails.
Yes.
Thank you.
I think there should be some thought into the charging part. Some things we allow people to charge and do on town property, like this building, no. Now you're gonna say yes, so there's gonna be a lot of,
Yeah, I think clearly we need to put together a policy, and that will come with the special events form. We'll be back to the board to ask for, or present you with some options and look for your approval or not.
Okay.
I have a question on number 3.
Okay, hold on. Which one's the question?
Number 3 under section 4B. Has somebody checked with the Conservation Commission to make sure they're not cutting off easement? I know one of them is grumbling, and I know there's an easement, I'm pretty sure, on this property. No easement?
Karen did not
I
tell me when she gave me the paperwork.
I don't know whether Karen has contacted the Conservation Commission or not, but
I would
can
like
certainly
to
pull
pull
this.
both of those until that is determined. That's part of what should be happening for intent to cuts when they come in, and to make sure that the Conservation Commission has no issue with them.
I agree with you, but I don't.
No, I'm not asking you to, but there is as far as I know, there's an easement on Grumbling, for sure. So at least that one needs to be checked, but they all should be checked with the Conservation Commission to make sure that those intent to cuts are not on easements that say.
I can certainly check that. There's some pretty specific RSA about right to intent to cut, and I'm not sure beyond the board who we can necessarily hold people up for approval of. If there's a conservation easement in question, we could certainly ask the Conservation Commission, but if there's no conservation easement on the property.
No, only if it has an easement on that property.
It's also significant if there's an abutter. Most loggers do a good job, but sometimes where's that line?
There's that percentage.
So, yes, it's only ones that we have easements on, or if they have.
Or abutting an easement.
Yeah, so, yeah, if you wanna, you don't have an easement on your property and you want to intent to cut, that's perfectly fine, but the ones that have easements, they need to be checked with the Conservation Commission. One, to make sure that they're not cutting on an easement that says no cutting. I don't know if we have any of those, but.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes, okay, so.
We'll pull it.
So there's only one? I thought there was two, okay.
There's
Just one?
two excavations.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, maybe that's what I was thinking of, but yeah, one of them is,
Actually, no, this is wrong because the intent to cut that we have is from Dorn Cox on Captain Smith Emerson. There were two, with the grumblings, both intent to excavate.
well, the Coxes have easements, definitely.
Right, easements may well include.
Which is fine,
Right.
which is fine, but they need to be checked.
There was another, I believe there was one from grumbling for
There's definitely some.
intent to cut. You apparently don't have a hard copy of it here.
So I was okay with the excavating, but I would like to pull all the intent to cuts until they're checked.
Very well.
Okay,
It's gonna
anything
be
else?
doubly easy to pull if we didn't bring it with us.
Whatever.
Oh, the grumbling, that was already approved.
Yeah, I think that's
That was
the
approved back in
timber
May of
tax, right?
'23, and that goes with the timber tax.
You know, there was just a copy in there.
It was
with
just a
the-
copy.
Okay, all right.
That goes with the timber tax, so this is the only one that,
And who is it?
Dorn, Cox.
And they do have easements on their property,
So
so.
we can have that checked.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else?
No, I'm happy with all the other ones.
Okay, I move to accept the consent agenda with the removal of the third item, intent to cut.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
There's the file.
Well, they're signing, can you give us an update on the town clerk situation?
I can. It has not advanced a lot beyond what I may have personally told you. Have met with Linda Reinholz. She told me that she is interested in supporting Georgia Butor as the new clerk effective July 1st. In whatever manner Georgia and the board is comfortable with her doing. We also had another citizen step forward that said that they had some interest in working in the office as well. I guess to get it out there publicly, Elizabeth Stone did give me a resignation letter effective July 1st for town clerk, and she'll be moving out of state. Georgia Butor, as the deputy, has the option to become the town clerk by state RSA. I wasn't sure if she was interested when Liz first contacted me. Liz wasn't sure if she was interested, but she's definitely interested in moving into the town clerk's position. She would stay there until the next election, and then she would have to run for the position if she wanted to keep it.
She meets the criteria, correct?
She does. She's a resident, and she's actually had a significant amount of training at this point with regard to that. The deputy does not need to be a resident, although Linda could certainly step in as the deputy and is a resident.
The
Assistant doesn't.
The assistant doesn't.
Okay. Well, either way, Linda is a resident, so
Yep.
But that's where we're at right now, and I will be meeting with Georgia and Linda and figuring out exactly how we want to orchestrate this, and we'll certainly present it to the board. And I had this thought in the back of my head that there was light at the end of the tunnel. We had replaced the finance person, we had replaced the retiring town clerk, and then there was going to be smooth sailing for at least a couple of years, but no such luck.
You jinxed yourself.
Apparently.
You didn't have time when for assault on your shoulder. How goes the moving of the manifest to the online?
It should be happening by the next manifest.
No, this is just that every single check that was written,
You'll be able
I
to,
went through and read them and the bills this past week.
yeah, you'll be able to look at them online as opposed to Rebecca having to come in and.
Every single check, we just Diane agreeing that we agree with them, money coming in. Like, this is, all of this is like money going to the electric.
Right.
Yes, there were two from the last meeting. The meeting that Denise was not at, I forgot to bring the manifest with me.
Anything new with switching us to a different financial institution?
I have not moved in that direction at this point because the budget was rather tight for what I had spent on the financial consultant that helped clean up some things in the town clerk's office and helped clean up some of the finance problems. And I just don't feel I can afford to, because it's going to take some significant labor to switch, I can afford to do it at this point.
Okay.
And we've been working more smoothly with M&T than we had been.
Yeah, the information I have from the municipal association meeting was that 533 is basically dead. They've gutted the whole thing. So.
They had a final executive session this afternoon. A number of us went to the hearing where they were supposed to be decided and final, and they talked for about 20 minutes and then said, yeah, let's come back and talk about it on Thursday.
Well, they decided there's a 30% you have to try, which basically means they don't have to. But yeah, so basically you should be fine. So supposedly the committee between the two, the current bill had people from the Senate on that particular group. So they should be also in favor of this. So.
Yeah, Senator Rosenwald was at the hearing that we went to, and she appeared to be backtracking, and she was one of the sponsors, the primary sponsors of the bill. So,
well, from what I heard, there was so much support from different towns that the committee got sick and tired of hearing the same thing over and over again. So, overwhelming support. Except the only people on the other side were the banking profession people.
Right.
So.
The gentleman from Rochester made that very clear at the hearing we were at.
Yeah.
He said the only people that seem to be against this, he said, are the banking community, and he said none of the towns that have talked to us, who've had 25 years experience with this, have any problem.
Old business? Any updates on anything?
I do not.
And no new business?
No,
Do
at
we
this point.
still need to move into non-public?
I do not need to go into
Yes,
non-public.
we do.
Oh, I'm sorry, we do, so we can give you an update on tax deeding.
Just C?
Yes. C.
Okay. I move to enter a non-public session, NHRSA 91-A 13, Roman numeral 2C.
Second.
Roll call vote, Ms. Ruggie?
Yes.
Ms. Aldering, yes? Mr. Bickel?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And they're all gone.
Oh, yeah, they all left. They were all leaving.
Needs a voice limit.
Okay, motion to seal the non-public session minutes.
Second.
Roll call vote, Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Benson?
Yes.
Me? Yes. Motion to adjourn?
Ooh,
No.
our meeting is the 28th, right? Not, it's on Tuesday.
Yes,
It's on Tuesday.
Yes, because the 27th is nowhere there.
Okay. Sounds good. All right, good then. All right, motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Okay.